This video is brought to you by established titles, but more on that in a moment. Hi, I'm Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi, and today I want to talk to you about lands. They're super important. You can't play golf without lands. You can't play football without some land. Or summon the Eldritch energies to kill your opponent's horse. Take that, you shit. Yeah, that's gonna be the horse getting shot, as I say. Beat the shit with donkey or whatever.
Do you kiss your mother with that mouth?
Well, sometimes, but not recently.
In today's video, I'm going to talk to you about some of the most powerful lands in all of Magic the Gathering. Or should I say, Magic the Gathering when it's a casual 4-player format, because of course, the video is about Commander. Because we're talking about lands, some of these cards are going to be very fucking expensive. So if you're starting to type down in the comment section below at how much the cost of living is going up and that the Conservative government doesn't care, and that fuel poverty is probably going to kill the elderly, I'm going to say to you, I know. Just proxy the bastard things. No one gives a shit. So I'm going to talk about the 5 most powerful cards for Commander. Yeah, because if it's about Modern, none of you fuckers would watch, and don't tell me you would. But before we get into that, I need to buy my super yacht that I can't fit under a bridge in Central Europe. So here's today's sponsor. Do you want to be a land-owning gentry? Well, outside of being born with a silver spoon in your mouth, it's virtually impossible. However, I've got a solution. Kinda. This video is sponsored by Established Titles. This is based on the historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds, lords and ladies in English. They look to sell you a square foot of land in Scotland to allow you to put the title of lord or lady on your debit or credit card. This doesn't necessarily bestow you the powers of the House of Lords, but it does give you a cool little certificate with an actual custom number on there telling you which plot you've got. This goes to support reforestation efforts and green initiatives like One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future. It's a fun novelty gift that you can give to your loved one, pet, parent, or even a stranger, although that would be a wee bit weird. So if you're looking to pick up a title for yourself or for a friend as a gift, use the code PKenobi10 at checkout, or the link in the description below. Established Titles told me that the first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my link will effectively be next to my plot, within a few minutes of walking distance. Depending on how many of you want to become a lord or a lady, we can build our own little PleasantKenobi kingdom, a little piece of land that I can overthrow and take control of. We could build a compound, we could build a cult. I didn't say cult, you said cult. That's PKenobi10 at checkout, or the link in the description below. First up, let's talk about some honourable mentions. Our first is Dark Depths. Now, Dark Depths is 100% a powerful land in other formats, and I know this video is about Commander, but I'm going to sneak some other shit in here too. To the extent that this is a card that dominated Extended, and has multiple legacy decks that utilise it as a kill condition, both as a combo deck and a control finisher. But it's kind of shit in EDH, but I wanted to talk about it anyway, for 2 reasons. Firstly, it can be used in Commander as more of a meme than anything else. For those of you who don't understand the interaction, you copy it with Thespian Stage, and then the Thespian Stage has no counters on it. The original dies a state-based action due to the legendary rule, but then you sack the new copy that has no counters on it, it triggers, and creates a 2020 Merit Lage. And a normal 1v1, this 2020 is an instant speed kill without interaction or blockers that you can make in people's end step and then go to combat with. But in EDH, it just halves one person's life total, so it's more fun. I say fun, I mean fun in that I think it's fun. I think it's fun to hit people with 2020s, I don't know. Maybe I'm a simple man. But in reality, it's more of a challenge to kill some of the Merit Lage in Commander, and it's more about that kind of challenge and that banter. The iconic make a creature as big as your head only really works in 1v1. But the other reason I wanted to mention it is because, well, it's been crept out in older formats by a newer land that's on the actual list, so I just wanted to mention this ahead of time to allude back to. There's another card that, in your mana base, creates creatures at an alarming rate that's much better than this. Can you predict what that is? Go on, comment down below. Feed me the fucking engagement, you cunts. But before we get to the list, honourable mention number 2, Urza's Saga. This is a pretty fucking dumb Magic card. It has transformed the face of both Modern and Legacy, seeing huge amounts of play across multiple archetypes. It's a land that generates lots of virtual card advantage, embodies that it produces that can be really quite big or just, well, relevant to carry equipment, for example, as well as replacing itself with an artifact at the end as a tutor. Saga is a much better honourable mention than, say, Dark Depths because, Well, it does a lot more than Dark Depths does. Dark Depths is a fun card that can kill someone in 2 shots, where Urza's Saga creates smaller bodies or larger bodies in some deck archetypes, but then chooses for something to replace itself that can be more mana. So you go a land down, but you end up with a Soul Ring or a Mana Crypt, or other bits too. Its tutor targets can range from utility pieces like Pithing Needle, right through to combo pieces like Azuran Orb in my Tachova deck. Urza's Saga is rarely bad, except for the fact that it being an enchantment and a saga means it's a bit soft to fracturing gust effects and blood moon effects respectively, but beyond that, it deserves a mention as a uniquely powerful effect that can be nuts in the right shell and is hard to replicate in a land. And that's a point I'm going to make now before we go on to the actual 5. Having a spell effect in your land base is so much better than having it on a spell for the most part. The whole point of this video is to help newer players as well as be amusing or interesting for established players too. So if you're new to Magic and you're thinking, why are we looking at these lands that do weird things or unique things in the sense of Urza's Saga, it's basically a free spell because you need lands anyway. So you can get lands with spells attached to them, they're even better. Number 5, Field of the Dead. This is the card that has replaced Dark Depths in some decks, or at least goes alongside it as a win con in Legacy. It is an absurd Magic card that allows people to get incremental advantage from land drops in the mid to late game, or just grind people out with a wave of value from one singular land. A piece of... It's an opponent on the battlefield that's difficult to interact with. My experience with Field of the Dead in Commander is one of 3 things. Firstly, you're kind of comboing off with Scapeshift or similar, you make a huge board presence, if people can't deal with it, you're just like one-shotting people. Far easier than you could with a Scapeshift. That's not, I just said Scapeshift, with a Dark Depths. A 2020 is nothing compared to 18 2/2s, a lot harder to block. Secondly, you just make a little bit of value here and there in a way that is frustrating for your opponents to deal with and gives you small advantages, nickel and dimes them in a way. Someone rafts the board, on the end step before your turn, you crack a fetch and make a body. That body you can then carry an equipment, attack and gain the Monarch, or be sacked to an altar, for example. There's so many things you can do with those zombie tokens that isn't just attacking, like blocking, for example. Or the third is that you forget it was there and you never ever trigger it, and it does nothing. So the floor is quite low when it comes to Field of the Dead, because sometimes you just forget it's even there, or you forget the first few triggers and you catch up later on. But the ceiling is massive. It must be one of those powerful board presence affecting lands in all of Magic, and the more I talk about it, the more I think it probably shouldn't have been in the 5th slot. Number 4. The Fetchlands. It's all the fucking Fetchlands in this slot. We weren't going to do a video like this without talking about them. I will never make a powerful lands video without the Fetchlands in it, because well, they're one of the most hotly debated lands for like being banned in older formats because of the complexities of slowing down the game with shuffling, but also how powerful they can be. And I'm going to clarify here, it's not just the fixing. Getting a shock land or a dual land or this particular jewel that you need is probably the best effect they do, but a close second is the utility of basically shuffling your deck. Cards like Sylvan Library, Sensei's Divining Top and Brainstorm, or if you've been trapped under ice like Steve Rogers or some shit, Future Sight. This added ability to gain value and card quality due to shuffling is almost as good as the fixing itself, and it turbo powers things like Oracles of Mobdaya. Add in any way to recur them, like Eternal Witnesses, Crucibles, or Loams, and we got a value engine that will upset those at the table that didn't buy into the lands when they were cheap. Which is now, by the way, I think a Scalding Tarn is around $20, which is an insane price for them, considering at one point they were 80. So buy, because Wizards actually fucking reprinted them, and it kept them down, and they're still down now. However, $20 is an absurd amount of money for a piece of fucking cardboard, so the alternative is proxying. Print them off, I don't know, write on a fucking forest, I don't care. But if I'm ever playing Magic with you, I want to play Magic with you. I don't want to compare wallets, disposable income, or how long we've been playing. It's fucking stupid. So stop fucking moaning and proxy some cards. Number 3, Mana Crypt. No, but seriously, just cut a basic land from your deck, add a proxied Mana Crypt. I don't care if you can't afford it, just write on a fucking swamp the words Mana Crypt. You can thank me later. The actual number 3 though is Maze of Ith. As someone who likes to play Haymaker finishers, or more accurately Voltron with decks like Rafika the Many, or the recently printed Gazgul as Mardu Orkman, I'm going to suit him up with gear and try and smack people. But fuck Maze of Ith in particular. What Maze of Ith actually does is it just rather subtly stops you getting smashed or incrementally hit by random little bits and bobs here and there, because it's going to keep one of those creatures out of the combat zone coming towards you. And it means you don't just die randomly to a hasty threat either. I'm basically explaining the fundamentals of Maze of Ith here. But some people tell me that Maze of Ith is a little bit too low impact for Commander, but I think those people are silly cunts. One of my favourite applications for a Maze of Ith is to make an alliance. Someone's about to get smacked by, let's say, someone else memeing with a Marit Lage. Just Maze of Ith it and suddenly you've got a friend at the table. Or perhaps you're playing arch enemy now against someone else who's got a much better board position than you. If you keep someone else in the game, they can be your puppet or your ally in that fight. I think king making with Maze of Ith is a bit shit, but also people probably need to play around Maze of Ith too. People like me can't rely on one big threat because Maze of Ith is a piece of interaction. Interactive magic. Am I right? I dislike king making, but I do love a good Maze of Ith off the top rope to keep a player in the game, and style points if you crop rotate into it. Number 2 is Gaia's Cradle. Look, Cradle makes the list because it's probably worthy of a ban. It's just that good. Tolarian Academy isn't legal because it's significantly more broken, and Serra Sanctum produces white mana, which makes it worse. Haha, white cards are bad in Magic, am I right? But also it depends upon you going quite deep and quite hard into a particular archetype, into enchantments and enchantress. Meanwhile, Cradle doesn't give a fuck, and it's just good if you have like 2 utility creatures in play. Now it's a soul land. The floor for Cradle is 0, but it will make up for that on every other turn of the game by tapping for at least 2 mana, sometimes hundreds of mana. It's in green, for fuck's sake, the colour of Avenger of Zendikar and Scoot Swarm, so it's not hard to really pop off with a Cradle. It will dominate games and upset some players. That's why it's fucking $1,000 at present. Well, that and the reserve list, of course. I would make a joke right here about perhaps getting another gold border version of Cradle to make it cheaper, but Wizards of the Coast have now proved to us that actually, fuck you, gold border's only for the whales. So fuck you. And you. So fuck it. Print yourself a proxy, scribble on some basic land somewhere, or just tell people a particular full art card in your mana base is your Cradle. Powerful magic with good mana is not something that's a privilege for those who are born into money, or even those that have worked hard for the money that they have right now. I think it's dumb to play a game that rewards those that have more money than others. I mean, the world is already set up like that, right? The cold fucking arm of capitalism hates us all. So why not just endorse proxies wholesale at this point, for casual games especially? That's right, this top 5 lands video, because lands are the absurd part of the whole game if you really think about it, it is secretly a pro-proxy video. And this is going to happen more and more often as I see people fucking bitch and moan about me playing Cradle, because I've got one from years ago. Fuck it, I don't give a shit. You should proxy it. Magic is really good when you get to play the most powerful cards. It's at its best, arguably. Let's do that. Get yourself a fucking Sharpie and write on that basic land right now. Write the words Gaia's Cradle, take a picture of it, and tweet it at me. Go on. I believe you can do it. And at number 1, we have some land destruction, because let's just make this video an absolute shit show. Strip Mine. That's right, that's my number 1 pick for most powerful lands in Commander. It's the antithesis of good mana and utility lands in many ways. It's Strip Mine, it blows them up, or at least it's the counterplay for them. More people should be playing Strip Mine, and to a lesser extent, but perhaps more valid, Wasteland as well. Or other effects like this. If these are too expensive and you aren't proxying for some reason, go with Ghost Quarter or Field of the Dead. Not Field of the Dead, sorry, Field of Ruin. EDH Rec has Command Tower only being in 72% of decks. So if you take that as like the most popular land in the format, Wasteland only sits at 5% of decks, which is such a massive gulf between this and Command Tower. But I genuinely believe this should be compared to every other auto include in the format. The reason I think we need to push more people to include this in their decks is a way to interact with the lands that I just mentioned, and other incredibly powerful effects too. The reason a lot of people groan when Gaia's Cradle or runners up like Cabal Coffers enter the battlefield, or get activated is because firstly, well, there's 2 things. Firstly, they're prohibitively costly. They're keeping some people out from playing with them, which again, I think the proxy argument just gets rid of that shit, and that's how we should go. But secondarily, these cards often just run away with the game. And for that reason, I want to advocate that people play ways to interact with permanents that are hard to interact with. I mentioned this at the very beginning, when we talk about Field of the Dead. It's so good because it's hard to kill it. Enchantments, artifacts, and creatures all get hit by most things. It's rare you get a Vindicate or Beast Within. And I think people should be playing Vindicate or Beast Within, or in this case, Wasteland or Strip Mine, in order to be able to interact on the axes and blow up these powerful game pieces that some people will just play and run away with the game with. Field of the Dead deserves a gun put to its head and a trigger pulled, and the person playing it should not cry about that. The response should simply be, yeah, okay, that's fair. Wasteland in some ways is better than Strip Mine for this because you can't hit basic lands, so you never get the temptation to do so. However, if somebody is sitting there with only one forest in play and you need to interact with them in a way that allows you to get ahead and the pod allows for it, strip mine that fucking forest, get it out of here. Hell, green doesn't need any help anyway. But don't do that to the 14-year-old at the local game store you just met. That's probably a little bit harsh. I know land destruction is always frowned upon and people fucking moan about it, but we need to talk more about actually dealing with the problematic lands in the format. Things like Gaia's Cradle. I've won so many games where I would not have won them if someone just blew up my Cradle. If they blew up my Cradle, I don't cry, I don't bitch, I don't moan. I'd probably say something along the lines of, yes, that's very fucking reasonable. That's what you should have done. It's called interactive magic, and it's some of the most fun magic you can have. And I want people to be able to interact in that way without price being a barrier. So I'm pro proxy as well. Let me know what you think of the list in the comment section below. Did I miss out a land that you think is more powerful than any of these 5? So I've picked they're pretty obvious ones if I'm honest. As I was writing it, I was thinking, I hope I make this interesting because otherwise it is kind of 5 lands that we all know about. But I also want to talk about proxying and I want to talk about interaction as well. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I've been Vince, also PleasantKenobi on the internet. Thanks to Trigger for editing this fucking mess of a video. And thanks to Established Titles for sponsoring this video. Smash that like button, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all soon. Ta-ta for now.